What up, what up, what up? It is Brian with the Blurting While Dead live stream back in the studio for this episode. So, on tonight's episode, we got a wide range of topics that I don't have any expectation of getting to all of them. I've realized that that's just me. I do have some new changes and some things that I kind of want to talk about a little bit. But before we get too far into it, I'm going to let the live stream populate a little bit and talk a little bit about what I have been up to. So, this past week, um, made the decision after talking to one of my health professionals, made the decision to try going back on actual real ADHD medication. Um, it's not like I ever had a bad experience per se. Um, the dosage I was on like Vyvanse or something. The dosage I was on was way too high, and my expectations of being on Vyvanse was way too high, and it was just like this bad. It was like this cascade of bad events. Like my dosage was too high, the expectations of myself while I was medicated were way too high. I didn't really walk in with a good framework of what this stuff could actually do and what it couldn't do and what the limits of ADHD medication was. And so I was upping the dose and saying I'm not getting a therapeutic effect, not understanding that I actually was getting the effect, but it wasn't as dramatic as I had imagined it would have been. And so what happened was I immediately shot myself up to the top dose of Vyvanse and instantly turned myself into a zombie. And absolutely caused a lot of damage in my interpersonal life, um, and things along those lines. And it literally like removed my entire affect. Like I had a flat affect all the time. People thought I was sad, mad, or depressed all the time, and I'm sitting there like I am completely neutral. Um, and it just was not a great experience. I was able to accomplish a lot more, and so that's how I rationalized it in my brain, being on this dosage of ADHD meds that were really too high. I rationalized it like, well, this is allowing me to do my job better, allowing me to meet my deadlines better. It wasn't, but that was the way I rationalized it. And I had this fear that if I came off of the ADHD medication, that I would lose everything. And so I was rationalizing it like, okay, I can endure this for a short amount of time until this is over. And then once this is done, I get to a certain point, I can back off the meds and deal with whatever consequences may come. But of course, when you're thinking like that, you never get to that point. And so what happened was I was on too high of a dose, and I was too scared to say this isn't serving me. And so I ended up coming off of ADHD medication totally, and um, everything kind of descended into madness for a little bit while my body got acclimated to it. But I was able to struggle and survive through it. It was a daunting kind of thing, and I burned myself out a lot faster because I didn't have the ADHD medication help me out. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And so I'll talk a little bit more about the ADHD stuff. Um, so tonight's topics, the ones at least I want to kind of hit, are IQ tests and the racist idiots who love them. And I'm saying this as somebody who's last time I did an IQ test, I think my range was like, well, not I think it was 145 to 150 because I have it right here in front of me. It's 145 to 150. And so I'm saying that the IQ scores don't matter the way that people use them online because they're using it as like this sorting thing, to say that this race is inferior to this race and blah, 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 blah. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some X-Men stuff, and get a little bit into the racial aspect of the racialized aspect of X-Men. And throughout the years, you've had different writers. Some of them understand a little bit of the oppression and stuff like that. Others are just writing because they're comic book writers and fans and whatnot. But basically, talking about the politics of oppression within the X Men. Talk about red state, blue state bullshit, and I think that's about it. So I got all these topics. So I'm probably not going to be able to hit all of them tonight. So, but buckle in. We'll see where we go with it. Um, First things first. Um, Last week I was up in my living room because I just gotten back from being out of town. We're trying to get, when you travel out of town, you got to get your life back in order and everything. And I really did not have the energy to go set up for a full live stream, and so that's why it looked different. I'm back in my studio now, but I do want to give this show a couple of different looks. I do want to do some different things on the stream. I'm still trying to figure out when I'm actually gonna like play some games on here and start streaming that way. So I'm sorting all that stuff out. I want to add some new things to here, and also open the door for some new conversations or whatnot. Initially, this started out as just a comic book nerd live stream, but I'm a politics nerd, and so that kind of took over. But I don't want to get too far away from comic books and video games and stuff like that. So I got to find a way to integrate that. So anyway, first things first. Let's talk about how fucked are we. um, we're going to talk about election maps and talk about election map politics and how we kind of use election map politics to um, kind of use broad brushstrokes, if I'm being honest, for entire regions of people, and not understanding some of the nuances of geography and population centers and things along those lines. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Looks like we got a comment off the rip. What? What up? So, um, anyway, with election maps, the way the election maps are drawn and the way that they represent them on TV, you have your red states, your blue states, or whatnot, and it's kind of programmed as it's kind of said as this is a flyover state or whatnot. Or we can disregard all the people living here because they don't align with our politics. And my contention is a lot of times the map doesn't represent the politics of the people locally or nationally. And so when I look at my state specifically, it's a red state, but one of the major population centers, and the population center that has its own electoral college vote is actually a blue dot. And so the politics in the city are vastly different than the politics of the people that aren't in the city. And that's really how this place is constructed. And so, oftentimes, when we have these conversations, specifically when I'm talking to a lot of people from blue states, um, instantly I always see, since I'm in a red state with a blue dot, typically it'll be like, y'all voted for this and blah, 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 blah. And the reality is, where most of the people live, where I'm at, did not vote for this. But the way the Electoral College has us screwed over, and the way the Electoral College splits our votes up, um, the majority of the state voted for it, but where I live did not. And since we split our electoral college, that actually does matter. In most states, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they only go with it's a winner take all kind of system. So whoever gets the most votes, that's where the electoral college seat goes to. In our state, where I'm at, we had each voting district kind of has its own electoral college, and so what happens is, depending on who wins the district, that's where the seat gets allocated. I'm hoping that makes sense, y'all. Okay, and so election maps make politics look a lot cleaner than it actually is, and so oftentimes I've seen the maps where they show all the red in the country, and then the speckles of blue throughout the country, and they're like, "See, you guys are outnumbered." The reality of the situation is, all that red represents land. It's a lot of it's empty land. The blue is more like population centers where people actually live. I'm not saying people don't live in all of the sea of red and stuff, but it's a lot of people are spread out a lot more, and oftentimes we use that as a barometer to say what politics or what party is more popular or what political positions are more popular. And oftentimes when we use Sam Brown back, right? Um, Oftentimes when we use the way that when we use election maps to say this is how this region is, it really doesn't give an accurate representation of it. Like I said, where I'm at when I was growing up, and I'm dating myself when I was growing up, um, where I'm at, we did not know a lot of the political parties of the people we voted for. You had an idea, but that's not what got you in office. Typically, especially if you wanted to be governor of Nebraska, all you had to do was be a boring white dude, and that was just it. And it didn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. And so we had, for a long time, we had a conservative Democrat actually in the governor's seat here, and that's just how it was. And then in the '90s somehow, and I have a feeling it had something to do with Newt Gingrich and all his mechanizations around that time, where it really started getting more polarized. What happened was all of a sudden everybody was identifying in terms of what their political party was. Now, for Black folks, that didn't mean a heck of a whole lot, right? We knew where our bread was buttered, and who represented us at least in voice, but not in deed, if that makes sense. And so we kind of knew what the deal was. And all right, let's see. Let me go through. What's up, Maddie? How you doing? I did get a chance to. I did get a chance to watch it, but I watched it after we got off stream. Immediately after we got off stream, and I went to grab something to eat. No, I was kidding. I was a moderate. Yeah, it was a moderate Democratic state. Um, it was an abortion. It was primarily abortion. And Newt Gingrich's contract with America. I think that broke a lot of people's brains. Plus, I'm gonna be honest with you, the ascendancy of Rush Limbaugh and Fox News has a lot to do with our current state of at least political polarization to the point where it doesn't even make sense, right? Um, Hello, thanks for tuning in. The political polarization didn't, yeah, it was good. The political polarization didn't even make sense, from a standpoint of, because a lot of times people were saying, I represent this party, I represent this party, but the parties didn't even align with what people's um, morals were, or what they actually valued. They just labeled themselves as this thing. I remember very clearly I worked with a dude. Um, yep, Fair News Act where Reagan was killed. Right. I worked with a dude who was a Republican in name only, but he was pretty liberal. But the reason why he identified himself as a Republican was because his dad was a Republican, and that's what he was just supposed to be. That was his gang. That was the gang that he was involved in, and so he had to rep his set, and that's kind of what it turned into. And um, it was really, really weird, and he didn't believe a lot of the things that, I think it was the religious right, and then later on the compassionate conservative movement, and all that other shit that came out. He didn't necessarily align with them on a policy issue, but he repped it like it was a team, like he was representing his team. It was super weird. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. And so, and I realized at the younger age that these are all just labels. Like, people, they'll say that they're one side or the other or whatever, and then it doesn't really matter what the politics are. They will make their beliefs align with the political party that they're in, as opposed to picking the political party that aligns with their beliefs. And so that's why I don't invest in a lot of, you know, this is the party of righteousness and hard work and all that other shit, because really it's kind of a, they're rationalizing after the fact. If I'm being 100% honest. Yeah, in Kansas, we had a lot of Republicans who say that way so they can vote moderate in the primary and then blue in the general. I mean, and that's the game right now. Nebraska's kind of in the depths of that, because this state is pretty much owned by the Ricketts mafia, the Ricketts family, and they're pushing whatever their hardline conservative, Catholic flavored agenda is, and as a result, they are funding a lot of candidates. They're funding a third party, and then the Democrats are funding a third party. The third party is really just a plant to try to peel voters off from the other side, and it's all bullshit. All of it, none of it makes sense, but it's all this weird Game of Thrones shit going on with the political shit. And I think the frustrating part is real people's lives are being impacted by this. Like, people are going to die based on what legislation gets passed. Um, what gets passed at a national level. But they treat this like it's a big ass sport. For a lot of people, they have the privilege of sitting in relative safety, regardless of who's in the White House, or they're in a county where everyone being a Democrat is so right. And that's how it's labeled. Like, oh, you're a Democrat. Like, and I've heard you're a demon rat and all kinds of other weird, goofy shit. Um, that you wouldn't expect adults to really use when talking about serious issues, but they do. And so they have these weird, you're a libtard, har 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 har, and then you're getting memes from 2017 about a liberal or a conservative or a democrat or whatever. They've made this. They've kind of put their stake in the ground and said, my political party is righteous and moral and pure, and yours is evil and blah 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 blah. And then they disconnected from the actual policies, or the policies set to harm people, or they set to benefit people, which people are going to benefit from it. That's the reality of things, and so it's really kind of an interesting thing to see. Or is the Koch brothers? Yeah, they've been the villain of America for a long time. They've been control our state chamber of commerce. Ooh, yeah, that one is tough because when you control the state chamber of commerce, that means you have a direct line to every single business in that chamber of commerce, and they can all basically jockey for your attention and jockey for favorable legislation to the point where it's not even necessarily serving the community as much. And that's what a chamber of commerce really should be. It should be a place where the local businesses can get support and support one another and things along those lines. But then when it turns into a political echo chamber where one person can actually influence, one or two parties with money can actually influence the entire direction and talking points of the Chamber of Commerce and use them to kind of ram through legislation, it turns into really kind of some sick shit. And people have already died. Oh yeah, I'm fully aware of that. And it's crazy. One of the things I mention all the time is when we talk about real impacts of elections, me and my kids lost our insurance because it just went up to a point where we could not afford it. And so fortunately we had to get on my wife's insurance, but I was carrying insurance as a business owner and I was paying for it and me and my kids were represented on it. But what happened was the price of it went up overnight. It went from affordable to completely and totally unaffordable, just like that, because they let those subsidies expire and it turned into this political football. And fortunately, we had a chance to pivot. A lot of people didn't. They're rationing medication right now and contemplating end of life care prematurely just because they don't have access to the insurance and they can't afford what the new premiums are. Aligning with party views is killing the world. Basically saying I'm easily controlled, right? So take advantage of me that way. And there's no even discernment between what the party is actually doing versus these ideas that they have in their head of how they label themselves as righteous, moral, or just based on whatever political parties they throw their votes into. I mean, we landed on our feet. I was fortunate. Our family was fortunate, but there's a lot of people that were not, who could not afford the jump in the premiums because they allowed those subsidies to expire. And really, it was all to score political favor with people who was a level 3 trauma center within 10 minutes of my house. There's another emergency room within 3 minutes of my house. My internet's pretty stable. My kid's school is not in any jeopardy of closing. I have access to all of the services that living in a city affords. I don't have to worry about my water. I don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Y'all live out there where y'all need all of this stuff. Y'all need the federal funding to keep your school open, federal funding to keep your hospital open, federal funding to keep your roads open, federal funding to make sure your water plant still functions, right? You're going to need federal disaster relief when that tornado comes through and tears all the shit up. We good over here. You guys hurt yourselves over here. And a lot of it was just so that you can remain in your political game. So it was. They wanted to remain in their political gang, and not a lot of thought was given to, they just thought they were going to hurt those people, but they hurt themselves. And the problem with the way the party systems are laid out is you can vote for somebody who actually hurts you and yours and still point the finger at the other side and say it's their fault. Like, I live in a state where the legislature has been we have had one party rule in the state of Nebraska for almost 30 years. Like, we've had one party rule. And somehow, every single year, the political football that gets kicked around is property taxes. And somehow, some way, we've had one party rule. It's not even been close. But somehow, some way, when it comes to property taxes, it's the fault of the party that has not been in power for 30 years. Yeah, it's been bad. And that's what I'm saying. The reality of how this thing works is we've had this one party rule, but when they can't get property tax sorted out because they've been fighting about property tax for decades, somehow it's the fault of the party that has not had any real political power to really do anything. The only thing that they've had the political power to do is sometimes stall things, but even then, that requires somebody crossing the aisle. Yeah, it's bad. And they always they do the same thing where they always find a way to blame the other side for shit that they can't figure out. Political footballs that they've not been able to get in the end zone. That's what happens. It's the weirdest thing. And people, they're so aligned with finding someone else to blame, but it can never be my fault. It couldn't be I voted. It could never be, wow, I really fucked up this last election and voted for this mess. Ooh, I need to do better next time. It's always their fault over there. Those people over there that have not had any political power in this state, it's their fault, even though they don't have any political power to do anything. If they would just do what we say, it's ridiculous. Explain. So I find Madonna. Explain. Yeah, kind of explain what you mean by that one. Because I think I'm interested in the entire Mamdani thing, specifically in New York. But understand, for my thing, New York is a blue city in a blue state. Yes, they have their Republican representatives and stuff like that. But I mean, he's in a pretty solidly blue location where he's operating from a place of relative safety, even though one of the most conservative hotbed place of conservative thought you're going to find is like in the NYPD, and they are overwhelmingly powerful in New York. But I'm interested to see where that goes because they're trying to make him the villain, and he's been so deft in avoiding it, being so likable to the tyrants in charge. I'm just wondering what happens. Feels like he spent 15 years being told can't do it, rules, red tape, and every time he cranks out a new rule, that's a big issue. It's on social media, like it. Right. It's interesting to see. Right, and I think what's happening is he's making these charges in Plant's feet. I think what's happening is um, he actually like this is real. This is what populism really is supposed to be. Like he is really going for the will of the people, and he keeps getting threatened because these billionaires are saying we'll leave New York. And he's like, I bet we'll leave New York because they're going to uproot their entire ecosystem? Some have, but most don't, and they're empty threats, and it's really kind of interesting to see. Um, and outside of New York, everybody has these doomsday ideas of what New York is going to turn into, and it's just going to be this awful place. And really, the people that live there is kind of cool. It's kind of the same thing with Chicago, where Chicago has been, the racist dog whistle for there's a bunch of black people there and it's violent. And the reality of it is, Chicago pretty cool. There's areas where people are doing wild shit, but otherwise it's pretty cool. And New York's kind of been the same thing, where you have your areas that are doing wild shit, but it's otherwise pretty cool. I wasn't listen. I went to New York during the Giuliani era, and I think when Pataki was in charge, it was a shithole, bro. Like it was dirty, and there were adult movie shops on every corner. I was in Times Square. I was like 12 years old. My uncle was walking me around. My uncle was from my godfather, actually, uncle slash godfather. He's walking me around the Times Square. He grew up in the Bronx. He's telling me, "Hey, don't touch that," or "Be careful with this, that, and the third." And it was really this elevated sense of danger. I remember getting the full talk from my aunt, rest in peace, Aunt Berla. Um, I was getting the talk from her: don't make eye contact with people. If somebody makes eye contact with you, be careful and stuff like that. Like there was this entire talk that went on about New York. This is New York in the 90s, right? New York in the 2000s doesn't really, I mean, is not hitting the same in terms of how what I experienced when I was walking around there versus what is happening now. But they're treating New York like it's the New York of the 90s with Mondani in charge specifically. Interesting to see. So that's kind of what it is. And so typically when we start talking red state, blue state, it really minimizes things because typically people that live in population centers tend to be a little bit more progressive in their views because they are living, or they have to live and talk to a wide variety of people. And typically when you live amongst a diverse group of people and have to interact with a diverse group of people, that makes you a little, you even if you are not as progressive, it tends to make you a little bit more progressive just by being in a city. And so, even in red states, sometimes the cities are pretty progressive. Now, they may not reflect it in the mayor's office, but overall, the vibe in the city is a lot different than once you get out of the city. At least that's what I found. And so, when I look at these maps and they show all these red states, and it's just this sea of red and little sprinkles of blue on the coast and stuff like that, and little dots of blue in population centers, I know that's not necessarily always reflective of the politics on the ground. Yep, the cities have the biggest social services. Well, and I talk about it too. I talked about it on here. Like I know people, and people will sit here in this state, um, and they hate the cities. They hate Omaha. They hate Lincoln. We're Detroit as far as they're concerned. But and they'll talk about we need to get rid of Omaha and blah blah. Blah. Omaha costs us too much money. Not understanding that if Omaha left Nebraska tomorrow, the rest of the state would collapse. If Omaha and the metro, like all the suburbs around Omaha and everything, if that just said we're going to move, we're moving over to Iowa, because right now, I mean, if you don't know the landscape of Omaha, I'm literally, I'm about 5 minutes from Iowa. Iowa border. You're never really too far from Iowa, no matter where you go in the metro. And so, if Omaha just said, "Hey, we about to go join Iowa real quick, y'all be easy," what'll happen is all these municipalities around here would collapse because all the tax burden would suddenly shift to them, and there would be nothing. Everybody works in Omaha, everybody shops in Omaha, and that's kind of how it goes around here in the eastern side of Nebraska. Can't speak for the Panhandle, but Omaha's money is keeping a lot of this state afloat. It would cease to exist, but they hate our guts, even though we're the ones that are actually subsidizing their existence. This is not the other way around. They're thinking that these big ass farmers are doing it and they don't make enough income, and they already are super tax advantaged, so they don't pay enough into the tax system to keep a lot of these surrounding communities up and running. It's Omaha and Lincoln's money that's keeping these places up and running, and the corporations that are situated in Omaha and Lincoln that are keeping it running. Like these farmers are super tax advantaged in most cases, and the largest farmers have the most tax breaks. They're not paying into the community the way that the bigger cities are funding these small towns. And that's a Midwest thing, but it's also it may be just a Midwest thing because oftentimes I find in the Midwest you have a state that has one big city, a couple of smaller cities, and that's how it goes. You can go to Ohio and find multiple major cities, right? Exactly. Exactly. They have the privilege to outsource their poor and send to the urban centers, and they end up sending them here. You know, if you need intensive monitoring for a heart condition or something along those lines, typically you end up in university and you're in Nebraska, right? there's a big burn center in Lincoln. And so families end up having to move to Omaha or Lincoln, even if they live out in the Panhandle, if there's some major medical emergency, because a lot of these rural hospitals and medical centers are not equipped to deal with the level of care that some of these people need. And so they end up shifting them here. We have an entire thing where one of the suburbs in Nebraska, they're fighting, like people are actually actively fighting because they don't want to recognize that they have a homelessness problem. And for a long time, what they were doing was they were taking, if they found somebody that was homeless or whatnot, the police would just transport them to Omaha and drop them in the shelter, even though they weren't from here. And that's just what happened. And so we're starting to see, and so yeah, they outsource it because the resources are here. I have a component about all this. Data centers have become the biggest unifier, but it's the biggest thing that everybody can point to and say that's insidious and I don't like it. The reality is, and this is the insidious part about data centers. I know AI data centers have different power consumption profiles than all the other data centers, but we have a data center probably maybe 2 or 3 miles from here, big ass Google data center. That Google data center doesn't do any like it's not any AI stuff, but it's Gmail, it's cloud services, it's YouTube streaming and stuff along those lines. If it wasn't AI, our consumption of streaming media and cloud services was going to end up becoming the problematic piece of data centers. That's just my thesis on it. But I think because AI data centers are kind of the topic du jour, that's what everybody wants to focus on. And at some point, we need to put some onus on these companies to say, okay, you hook us on these services. You end up hooking us iCloud. You hook us on iCloud and stuff like that. And you label them as different things, right? But iCloud still uses a lot of Google infrastructure, right? You hook us on these services. You make us dependent on it because our devices need the access to these services just to have basic function. But what is your plan to make sure that you are doing your part in being a good neighbor and making sure that you're not jacking everybody's electricity costs through the roof or destroying somebody's entire water table? What are you doing? And what costs are you bearing to make this thing real? Because what's happening is, I think everybody has to unify against them, bond together and have conversations about data centers. The problem is what they're doing is I still have a little bit more research to do with it about this, but so I'm being really careful in the way I'm phrasing this. But a lot of these major corporations are building data centers as this exploratory thing to see where the community will bear it, and also to see if they're actually going to be needed. And so they build these big ass data centers, and then they hire a scant number of locals to run it. And so if they need to shutter it, if they need to shutter it, or they can't make a closed loop system, they can pivot them immediately away, and the locality is left footing the bill for it. And so there has to be, and they're doing everything. I think my frustration is these governments are, local governments, national government, federal government, they're doing everything but actually saying, okay, Google, you built your data center here. What's your economic plan for the area surrounding it? How are you going to minimize the noise? How are you going to minimize your water consumption? How are you going to keep people's prices from going down? What technology are you willing to foot the bill on to make sure that you have minimal impact? Because you hooked all these people on the services that need the data centers. You hooked them right now, streaming right now, some data centers making this happen, right? Streaming music, streaming video, a data center is making that happen. You got people dependent on this technology. Like even playing games, you still have to connect to a server, and that's still a data center, right? You got people dependent more or less on this technology. What are you putting up to make sure that you are minimizing the damage that you're doing to economies and ecosystems? But they're not doing it. They're just high level. Well, yeah, Democrats or Republicans. Our governor got even got in on this shit, signed some kind of bill about data centers after doing some backdoor deal with them. It's crazy. The point is the issue breaking apart traditional schisms have spent decades to develop and ensnare people to break up families and friends and communities. That is true. Um, I think, and we talked about it, but the Reagan getting rid of the fair, whatever the fair time thing is, where you had to, if you're going to have a political position, you had to have the other political position and grant fair time. That hurt a lot of things, and it allowed entities like Fox News, and Rush Limbaugh to exist. And I put a lot of onus on Rush Limbaugh because people minimize how big of a deal he was. It was a big deal, and his supporters were insane. And understanding it's not processed media drip fed to certain beliefs and biases. I agree with that. Caught the right propaganda system off guard. Americans got mostly against it before they could be treated as a propaganda machine. And I feel like what's going to happen is politicians are going to find a back door to avoid holding any of the companies accountable. Like, I still feel like this is a big manipulation game. It's like, get them all mad about this thing, and we're going to position ourselves as against this thing, but it's going to be politically favorable for us, and we'll cut you a deal on the back end, because I think that's what's happening in the state of Nebraska. Yeah, it did. The one thing they're really good at is spinning it. I think that's what we're going to find out pretty soon here. They're going to spin the data centers. They're going to spin outrage against the data centers to something else, and then the data centers are still going to get their money. They're still going to get their government money, but they'll just find another vehicle to deliver it to them. I don't know, because I'm telling you right now, and I'm just using my state as an example. Our governor, who is Mr. Republican, Mr. Business First Enterprise Republican, came out hard against data centers. But then when you start digging through the layers, you're like, oh, so this is just to score political points. You've already worked out a deal with them. We just don't know about it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about the politicians. Oh, I get it. But what I'm saying is the politicians will they'll play into public sentiment and be on our side about it, and then use that to ride into office. And then once they get in office, they've already cut their deals. They don't really care what happens after that point. That's what I'm saying. I hope I'm being clear on that. I'm super cynical about this. Also, yeah, I know. I'm really jaded about it because I've seen specifically here how if there's an issue that unites both sides, what'll happen is our politicians here, especially the ones on the right, what they'll do is they will say, okay, a lot of people are against this thing. How can we be against this thing but still benefit from this thing? And then they roll it out. And then they get all the pats on the back for having the right politics, but then when you go beneath the surface, like, oh, they benefited either way. They made sure that they derived a benefit from it, and then the companies also benefited from it. That's what's happened here, and that's what I'm saying. Mm. Yeah, and I think, and that's just my experience locally. So I'm basing it on what's happening here, because I see the outrage against data centers, and I see how our governor is playing it for a political advantage, because he wants to be, he has an election coming up. He can be for against data centers and pound the table on it, but um, he's already got his money from it. They've already uh, cut the deals for it, and so he's already getting his stuff under the table for it. But he's going to use the political sentiment to gather more votes so he can overcome the other side, so that he can have the right looking politics that's going to win the votes for the people that were on the fence. It can be, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So I'm just talking about where we're at right now. What I've seen, I'm not saying on a national stage that's what's happening, but that's specifically what's happening where we're at. They used it as this bipartisan issue and almost put it to bed, like right here in Nebraska. They almost put it to bed. We got the gang of data centers here. They almost try to put the issue to bed because they're like, he signed this into law and said that they can't do X, Y, and Z with data centers. But then you look in the fine print, it's like, oh, he's profiting off of this. So there it is. So yeah, you just gotta. That's what I'm saying. I think here is ripe for that kind of stuff. Other municipalities, I feel like they may be their outrage is ahead of the ability to spin it, if that makes sense. But locally, these folks bought what he did, hook, line, and sinker. He came out hard against data centers after he had already gotten all the benefit from it and positioned himself to benefit either way. But also, I'm in a state where, like, the governor has a pig farm. It's a big pig farm, and a 17-year-old mysteriously died on that pig farm, and he coordinated with the state police to cover it up. So that's what we're dealing with here, and nobody talks about it. Like nobody talks about it here. Like people on our side do, but nobody else really wants to say. Isn't it weird how the governor had a kid die mysteriously on his family farm, his family corporate farm, and nobody says anything about it? Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange? Doesn't that strike you as weird? And people are like, oh, well, they investigated it and they didn't found anything. Well, I mean, they investigated it, but mom did an independent autopsy and somehow all the samples got destroyed right before she had that independent autopsy. Strange thing. Strange thing how OSHA approached it. You know, it's really like this is Tuesday for me. Oh, same here. My, well, no, I don't want to say completely same, but I did do abuse and neglect. That was almost 20 years of my life. Um, you know, saw a bunch of skeletons and plans. Well, they even said what happened to the kid, and it was truly the fault of the farm. Like they said, they had him spraying insulation without having the proper ventilation gear or without the proper gear, respiratory gear, and he died of asphyxia. And somehow that just wasn't a big enough deal. I mean, we had the same governor poisoned the entire town with pig shit. Like, I'm not joking. Like, and they just, that's all right. The lords of the land are just doing the things. We are all just serfs here. We're just all serfs here. And so the lords of the manor can do whatever. They can kill kids. They can poison the entire town with pig shit. It is what it is. We're going to elect him governor. That's what I'm dealing with here. And so I see how susceptible, specifically this state is to boring white dude. All you got to do is be a boring white dude. A boring conservative white dude, you're going to win governor every single time in this state. You don't have to have any engaging personality. You don't have to have any kind of charisma or anything. Just the plain white toast with no butter version of a politician. Mostly political. Die every year on there. I'm not dismissing. I'm saying the whole system needs to be changed, and that's what I'm saying. He has one of the biggest farms on the state. Ain't shit changing. He's rigged the game. And whatever reason, these small towns keep getting screwed by him. Like I said, entire towns poisoned with pig feces in the water. You would think that would, in a rational state, that would keep somebody from getting elected governor. And yeah, it's bad. But we keep voting these ho hum G shucks. Like the thing that always cracks me up, and you're in Kansas, so you're gonna know this too. It always cracks me up, specifically like a guy like Pete Ricketts, right, who's currently one of our senators. Every time I see him on a commercial, he's walking through like a cornfield or jumping off a tractor, or has a cowboy hat on and a horse. This dude lives in one of the richest neighborhoods in Omaha. He's dead in the middle of the damn city. Like he's in the middle of the city. He's in the absolute smack dab middle of a city. He grew up in the city. He went to school in the city. His whole family's in the city. He's a city dude. Every time they show him in a commercial, he's walking through some kind of cornfield or pretending to be a cowboy or something. And it's all aligned with saying, I'm one of you. I know I grew up the son of a billionaire who's like a billionaire family. Is not even really stationed, localized here. I mean, the thing that they had was like was it, TD Ameritrade or whatever. But somehow he's convinced all these people that he's the boring white dude that needs to be senator, and he gets to cosplay as a farmer or a regular person. Like he gets cosplay as that, like, and people are cool with it. Like nobody's saying, "Hey man, didn't you grow up his house is like 15 minutes from mine, bro. He's in the middle of this. He's more in the city than I am." But somehow every single campaign ad is this dude walking through a cornfield, hopping off of a horse, or and I know you see that all the time. Like this dude, like he lives in an urban center, but somehow, some way, he's a farmer or a cowboy. Isn't that strange? Isn't that weird? Um, a lot of politicians here do. You know, this dude is a billionaire. A billionaire. His wife gives all to all the liberal causes out there. His whole family is like this group of hedonistic liberals. And somehow, this dude is a farmer. He's a farmer in a city that has 1 million people in it. That's where he does most of his business. It's the weirdest damn thing, but it works to sell the people here. And so that's the image they sell to most people. So that's what it is. I talked about being a black voter in a red state, bro. Like you get it doubly because not only do you get hammered with the economic policies meant to be punitive to your community, but then you also have to listen to people that aren't from your state pretending like somehow you agreed to this entire thing just because you exist. You're a marginalized person who exists in this red state. Somehow you must have voted for it yourself. Yeah, tell me about it. Dr. Roger Marshall's residence in Kansas in some hunting shack. His vacation home's $1 million in Florida. Right. And blocks away from his kid's house. Yeah, he's not the first senator to do that. And it's kind of a Midwestern thing. That's why I know that you're going to get it. It's this weird Midwestern kind of bullshit show where in order to get elected to any major office here, you have to pretend that you're from a farm somewhere. This dude grew up in a city. You'll never see him in the city in one of his commercials because he knows that the people that vote for him hate the city. And so he has to pretend like he ain't from it. Oh, so he's a big liar too. Well, I mean, and plus, here's the thing. So that's great for Oppo research, right? Like all they got to do is find proof that he did it, and that could destroy his entire political career. Do y'all hear that? Democrats, do you hear that? I know y'all do opposition research. I'm going to tell you how to play in the mud here real quick. So this gentleman that Maddie is talking about, it will blow out HIPAA. He doesn't have to we don't have to necessarily identify the patient, but just find proof that he has performed an abortion, and you can absolutely nail him to the wall. Play dirty. They do the same to you. Yeah, I mean HIPAA would absolutely they can find a way. Like you get the right private detective, they can leak the information without leaking the patient data. And they're going to say, who's the person? I want to fight it in court. It's like, okay, well, sue us, and we can do it in discovery, and we'll pull everybody that you've been on the ledger for. To the Republicans and girls to see if they're getting abortions, right? So I guess my thing is, I hate to say it like this because I don't want to sacrifice any population of people that are already being targeted by these crazy administrations. But turnabout is fair play in a degree. If they can say, yeah, man, this dude's been doing abortions like that's what he did, bro. That's what he was known for. But now he's saying he's not. Shoot, I listen. They couldn't have me as an opposition. Like I'm a journalism major. They couldn't have me doing opposition research on some of these politicians because I get in the mud about it, bro. Like, oh, so you a full liar. But then I also realized for certain people on the right, hypocrisy is not a deal breaker. So you got to be careful with it. We have to be real careful and tactical about it. I get it. But you could say, I approve that you did this, and I've interviewed people that confirm you as the doctor. Well, bring them to court, or you could sue me. Was it libel? Libel, slander is said, libel is written, right? You could sue me for slander or defamation, and then we can put it into discovery, and then all of it can come out. Yeah, libel's written, slander is said. It's libel. It was like, yeah, defamation suit. Okay, cool. Sue me. That's why. Okay, so that's why. Remember that comedian I was talking about a couple weeks ago that kind of dropped the dime on Trump, like shitting his pants all the time. There's a reason why he ain't been sued yet, because he has not been quiet about it. There's a reason why he ain't been sued yet, because we could put it in discovery and we'll pull medical records and all that stuff will be public record. And dude's been like, he is. It's pretty obvious that he has severe incontinence issues and probably some other things going on in his brain, which I don't necessarily want to besmirch anybody that's dealing with dementia, but there's other things that are pretty obvious with him. He ain't sued that dude, that comedian that kind of opened the can of worms saying Trump wears diapers and he craps his pants all the time. Just because he could say, okay, so I'm lying about this. Let's try discovery. Sue me. Sue me. And in discovery, I'm going to ask for your medical records. All of them. And then testimony from all the nurses, all the memory care nurses that you've employed. All of them. And we'll drag all of this out. I don't sue nobody. So I could see, like, for me, I guess there's lines to it. I understand we don't want innocent people to be hurt and harmed by this. But the other side of innocent people are being harmed. Yeah. So I keep backing down. It's discovery. Innocent people are already being harmed. I think one of the biggest problems, and you might agree with me, you might disagree with me on it, Maddie. So ride with me. There are levels where the Democrats can afford to play dirty. And I don't even want to say Democrat. I did an entire stream about I'm over the labels and things. The progressive side of the ticket can play a little bit dirtier and still be still maintain the morals. But what's happening is they want to remain above reproach. We talked about they go low, we go high kind of thing, and how damaging that's been in terms of the economic or political way to handle politics, because you're playing by rules and the other side is not. And that's a game that you're going to lose all the time. Yeah, they don't play hardball. And there was a thought that I think the Obamas, and I think the Obamas believed in the promise of America. You wanted to believe in the promise of morals and being righteous and all this other stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that you have to do when you're a president. Like you turn into the warmonger in chief, right? Because you still have to maintain the imperialist side of America. But I think what happened is he believed in the promise of what this country is instead of the reality of what we're actually dealing with. And I think that first Trump presidency shocked people. I know they had reasons that they did a lot of damage, kneecapping their bruisers, yeah, and hard asses. And that's why I think Gavin Newsom's still going to win this. Like that psycho, he's psycho. But he gets it to a degree. Now, I think there's probably going to be something that comes out. We're probably going to have some weird October surprise with him. Uh, but he is the kind of psycho that would win. He's the kind of psycho that will win. Um, and he he's kind of built the same way, except he is the Democrats' version of it. Even though I know his policies aren't necessarily too terribly progressive in a lot of cases, but that's what I'm saying. They wanted to be above reproach. They didn't want to play the dirty politics of the day, and that worked the first time. It almost ended the presidency, it ended his reign as a one-term president, um, where it got a little bit closer than it probably should have been. But he didn't. He wanted to be above reproach. He didn't want. They didn't want to be playing the dirty politics game. They thought that they could usher in an era of better politics, and higher standards of politics, and this country showed them that we don't fuck with them. By and large, America does not want uh, honorable people in positions of power. We say we do, but our politics don't bear that out. Our voting patterns do not bear that out. Publicly chided, yeah, and I think that so we jump back, and the mindset is hope and change, change we can believe in. We got to be different, guys. We have to approach this differently. We got to be better than we were before. That was the sentiment that was going through, running through, or rampaging through our offices, elected offices, and whatnot, and even at the top of the White House. I feel like, um, and if we raise the bar, raise the expectation, America will rise to meet the expectations, and we'll have a better version of politics. And the entire time he's up here, these people are calling him monkeys and posting pictures of him and his wife in weird sexual things, and calling his daughters all kinds of horrific slurs and all of this stuff. And instead of addressing any of it, it's we just have to be above the fray. Couldn't be me. You go after my kids, all bets are off. I had a run in with on Threads. I had a run in. This is what mom was trying to do, but it felt naive. I think it was. Yeah, I do feel like it might have been naive. I think it was the disbelief of, because I promise you, he probably didn't believe like they. I don't think they were going to elect a black president. They elect a black president. There was a level of shock that reverberated through the black community that it actually happened. I think Obama might have get caught up with it too, but it couldn't have been me. The moment you target my kids, all bets are off. I had a gentleman on, had to be Threads, who he's one of those, and I don't want to give him too much attention and too much oxygen, but I'm gonna discuss it, just because it was something significant that happened over the last couple of weeks. Um, the gentleman on Threads, he was a leftist, and we're kind of going back and forth about leftist politics and racialized history and whatnot. And I kind of broke down, this idea that the white working class and black people have always been allied and stuff like that. And I had to point out, like, it's not true. If we're talking about who the biggest antagonist in terms of progress for black folks is, white working class and black folks have always been. It's always been, specifically if we were ever in some kind of alliance. Typically, as soon as there was skin in the game for the white working class, they broke off. And so I kind of pointed out, it was the white working class that kept my grandfather out of unions. They're the ones that did work stoppages when they had too many black people coming in and things along those lines. And lynch mobs, the rank and file were filled with white working class people. And so I kind of pointed that out to him, and he took it as I'm saying that he is a racist, and instantly it spiraled from there. This dude was calling me all kinds of names, um, you know, um, weird kind of veiled threats. Called me boy, called me subhuman, blah 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 blah. This is a leftist, alleged, right? And I realized that there's a certain kind of leftist that was actually a right wing person. They just hate capitalism, but they don't really hate racism. And so he leaned into that. And he's been crashing out on a lot of black folks' feeds on Threads. So long story short, um, he says something about my kids, and once you say something about my kids, all threats are off. So all bets are off. So I ended up going to his Facebook page and saw that he'd been institutionalized. Basically said, "Hey man, keep playing with me, bro. Um, when you finally have your final crash out and the dam finally breaks, I want to be the reason why. Make sure you tag me when you have to go back. You know, if you have to go back on a 72-hour hold because of all of this." And that ended up like he flipped out. It was bad. And he's talking about they need to come rescue your kids so they don't kill themselves and all kinds of other crazy shit. But that's the kind of person I'm dealing with. And so I don't play the Obama game. You go low, I take you to hell. You go low, and I will drag you to hell. And we'll both go. And so finally I ended up blocking him because then for other people, he started showing his guns and threatening to skin people and all kinds of other stuff. Really unhinged shit. But I don't really play that once my kids are brought in. And so Obama is a different dude than me because as soon as they started talking about my kids, I was like, all right, bet. Joe, go get him. I'm turning Rahm Emanuel psychotic ass on you, all of it. So let me catch up. Biden did become his attack dog. The Obama translator. Yeah, I don't do that. Movies. Music to not accept any group. Right. And that's what I talk about. Like, if we talk about, like, I think it's the CIO. There was a real weird split between the CIO and the Deep South, like in the 50s or 60s. Maybe transposing my times frames or whatnot. And it had a lot to do with they are willing to throw black workers under the bus to woo the Southern white working class voters. And that's just another example of it. Immigrants. I'm catching up. It's fake woke, metaphorically. So anyway, yeah, this dude turned into big old racist, and he's been crashing out on pretty much every progressive black person's platform. He's called one black Democrat pedophile with no evidence or anything, but that's what he does, and then he turns into I hate black Democrats. They're subhuman and blah 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 blah. So it wasn't really hard for him to hit that pivot. Like, he's a leftist, but like I said, it was hating capitalism more than he hated racism. And so he's willing to just absolutely lose his shit on any black people that disagree with him. And so, like I said, you play with me, I will take it to hell. I really don't care. Yeah, and see, that's what I'm saying. It's not. It's to me when I look at leftism and the example of leftism I grew up with. My mom was involved with Panthers and Black radicalism and stuff like that. We had an entire library pretty much in our basement full of Black leftist thought and things like that, and not understanding that there was the academic leftist and there was the actual real in the streets revolutionary, and those weren't the same things. And so a lot of times when people talk about leftism, they think that by quoting some Marx at somebody, that means that they are real leftists. And I'm like, okay, so but have you read Frantz Fanon's critiques of Marxism? You know, there's a lot of other black radical left books that have actual critiques of what the prevailing thoughts about leftism at the time was. And so, yeah, in my mind, he's not, but he identifies himself as such. It's not even American left because I think it's, again, the way I describe it is he's anti-capitalist. A lot of it had to do with the fact that he's anti-capitalist because in his mind, capitalism was the thing that stole his privilege. Capitalism was the thing that stole his privilege, the privilege that his parents enjoyed. And so capitalism is the big bad evil, and it's not as bad as any other ism out there. Like, it's not capitalism in his mind. In his mind, capitalism is worse than racism. It's worse than sexism. It's worse than any of the ogenies. It's worse than all of that stuff. Capitalism is the big bad evil guy in the room, and so as long as we're about against that, anything else doesn't matter. And that's kind of how it operates. The right of center. It's fake populism, is what it is. It's fake populism bullshit. Yeah, academic left were purged hard in the 50s, right? And so that's why, and what I'm saying is there was the academic left and then the actual uh, Black Panthers aim left, the ones that were actually the activist side of it. And you did have the Young Patriots, which were the white group in Fred Hampton's Rainbow Coalition, right? But um, to me there was a fine line between the academic version of it, and I'm not even saying that the Panthers weren't driven by academic, because all of them studied and read all of the texts, but they interpreted it through the struggle of Black people trying to get free in the country. And so it academic theory is different than actual application, and that's where the breakdown is. I'm catching up, guys. Civil rights leaders. Well, they're racist, and that's what I'm saying. So there's a couple of the one I and I don't like to just throw out content creators, but Lil Bill mentioned this, and he's one of the ones I've heard say it, but I've read it too. Um, there's a segment of white leftists who, again, they hate capitalism, but they don't necessarily hate racism. They hate capitalism because in their minds, capitalism robbed them of the privilege that future generations of them had. It robbed them of the wealth they were supposed to get as a failed inheritance, if you will, a failed inheritance. And so as a result, they're mad because they don't get to enjoy the same segregated and red taped society that their parents lived in. And that's why they hate the system. It doesn't have anything to do with equality. It has to do with the fact that they're not getting it. That alone is split through the future. Because here's what's happening. A lot, and this is my take on it. A lot of the online white leftists I encounter, they see themselves as extensions of Huey P. Newton. You know, they see themselves as extensions of the radicals of the 70s, and they are not. They are not, but because they align with them and can spout some of their ideas, you know, they think that they're the same people. You know, they think that they're Stokely Carmichael. They think they're H. Rap Brown, right? They are not, but some of them believe they do because they've read some political ideologies and agree with them on some things. And so when they start talking to Black people who are still dealing with the modalities of oppression in the United States in a perspective of being in 2026, right? They think that they are the experts on oppression. They know more about oppression than the people enduring it, and that's what the problem is. Well, and so and I told him, because I said, "Hey, you calling a grown man boy, bro? We know that's racist." Well, I'm calling you boy because you are immature and blah blah blah. And if you're just hurt by that, then you're soft. You're too soft to live in the world. And it's like, nah, man, you knew exactly what you were saying with that, bro. Like you knew exactly what you were saying. It's like, do you call your Black coworkers boy? Like you walk in and hey boy, like it was crazy. It's like that by design. People can go, I'm not racist. It's automatic hedge. And I talked about, I don't know if it was on this live stream or when I talked about metatextual shenanigans that happen in political politics all the time. Pretext, subtext, context. Now they're used and weaponized to launder people's racist thoughts and language. Right. And like, if we're looking, okay, so example, real quick, working example, you guys can look it up. There's a book called We Will Shoot Back. Go ahead and check it out. It talks about armed Black resistance in the theater of the Mississippi segregation, Jim Crow, civil rights era. And one of the things is they talked about Medgar Evers, who was the face of nonviolent resistance, or one of the faces of nonviolent resistance. But the NAACP actually called the feds on him, if I'm not mistaken, because he was leaning more towards the Mau Mau uprising and incorporating thought, some of that into the way that he thought and the way that he wanted to do his politics. And they pulled him, they yanked him back from that, and then used the federal government to kind of stifle him a little bit, and really tried to edge him on that because, even the people that were seen as nonviolent also understood the importance of self-defense. You know, it was an interesting thing, but there's an entire chapter talking about what happened with Medgar Evers and the NAACP, and the Mau Mau uprising, and how that informed his approach to organizing. Left wing leaders, future descendants. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not even knocking that out. I'm not even disputing that because the McCarthy era did a number on specifically a lot of people who would have been allies on the white left, but also the people that would have been in the trenches during the '70s ended up falling on us. Right. I agree with that. Oh, this dude. Okay, so I'm into this dude. This dude. If I'm not mistaken, was from Georgia. He knew exactly the context. He knew like this was not anything like, and he even admitted that he was it was racist. Like it wasn't anything that was beyond his understanding. It was intentional. It was 100% intentional because he's crashed out and was being a big ass racist to other black progressives on that same platform to the point where he's narrowly harassing them, um, showing him his guns and threatening to shoot him and all kinds of other crazy shit. A lot of it was paired with violent resistance. It was a good cop, bad cop. That's what I'm saying. So nonviolence was just a strategy, but it took a lot of armed people to make nonviolent resistance a possible thing in the United States. There was a time if you fell up in Dr. King's house, there was a good chance you were shot before you hit the front door. And so um, there was always that armed part of the nonviolent thing. Nonviolent was to juxtapose peaceful black people against the violence of the segregationists. But there was also black people that were running security that were armed that kept, specifically like in Mississippi, that kept a lot of those protesters alive in between. Ooh, don't let me get started on Gandhi. I think second wave is people think, hello, what for? First wave full on bombing runs and assassination attempts. Yeah, it did. And a lot of times the threat of violence has always been used to gain political traction. That's why when people say, "Oh, violence is the answer," it's been the answer plenty of times in the United States. Like, we got the Civil Rights Bill passed and other stuff passed after Dr. King got killed because they didn't want riots, and they're like, "This is the way to keep riots from happening," because they're already stretched thin by wars on multiple fronts, and things along those lines. The last thing they wanted was a black uprising and on the national stage, and so they were scared of the violence that would occur if they did not placate black people after Dr. King got assassinated. And a lot of the Black Panther stuff was actually a lot of it was education based, resource based, providing food to kids, clinics, health clinics, legal education, and things along those lines. The stuff that we see on television, that was the more sensationalized side of it, but a lot of their stuff was actually community based. Protest. I'm gonna look that one up. Um, Sister Suffragette. That's my homework. Oh yeah, I'm okay. It jogged my memory. I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about, Matthew. I had to jog my memory for a second. You said Mary Poppins. I shouldn't have known. Oh yeah, that's true. That's the play. They've been soft pedaling that idea since he got back in. He will not commit to accepting any election. They're actually trying to rig it right now. He's using the DOJ, and he's probably going to deploy ICE. I wouldn't be surprised if he deployed ICE to major polling stations in states that were disputed or that he believes were disputed, and it's going to be 100% to harass Black and brown people going to polls. That's all it's going to be used for. Trump has a secret police. He has his KGB. ICE is his KGB. Those are his loyal foot soldiers. People want to know what happened to. Now they're not even hiding. People want to know what happened to all the white nationalists that stormed the Capitol and stuff like that. A lot of them got jobs in ICE. A lot of them got jobs with ICE. That's his loyal army. People don't understand how bad it's going to get here. People don't get it. And that's why when the election turned out the way it did, I was resigned to it. I was the thought I was is, well, I've lived my entire life under a degree of racist fascism. This isn't going to be any different. That's why a lot of Black people just kind of withdrew. I'm gonna be honest with you. Politically, a lot of Black people in this country politically withdrew. I said, we're done. We're done. Because we've lived our entire lives under this. We've been breaking our backs the last couple of years to try to save the rest of the country from having to endure it. And the rest of the country wanted it. And so a lot of Black voters just said, we're done. We are already acclimated to the world that you guys aren't acclimated to yet. And so all the outrage around Minnesota and the killings in Minnesota and stuff like that, that was just ICE treating regular American citizens the way that we've always expected police to treat Black people, even though they kill more white people than Black folks. We get killed at a disproportionate rate to the rest of the society. And so we saw ICE treat, this is the first, and I think for a lot of people, this crystallized a moment like, oh, it can happen to any one of us. And Black people are like, yeah, what we're trying to tell you. I mean, it sounds bleak, and sorry if it bums you guys out, but that's really what it is. They never have. Master Fee just got silly shit, right? Yeah, Mitch McConnell. We're not going to know when he croaks when it happens. It's going to be a big gap, and he's just going to disappear for a number of days, and then they're gonna carry it for as long as they can. They're going to pretend like everything's fine. The president is on vacation or something like that, and they're going to be trying to figure out what to do. Like right now with Mitch McConnell, that dude, they're still, oh yeah, he's fine. He's fine. He's out of the hospital now. They keep showing us the same picture of him in a different shirt. That's what they're doing. They're beta testing it. They just shut down a lot of people. Right. Electric shock glove. I was going to talk about that. I was actually going to talk about that on stream. I hadn't read the article by the time Showtime started, so I didn't want to discuss it without being aware of it. But yeah, that's the world we're moving into, and they're going to kill somebody with that. They're absolutely going to kill somebody with electric shock gloves, and they're going to say, "Well, this person that they killed with it already had a heart condition, or he's already on drugs, or whatever." I lost one of my friends that I grew up with. I met him when I was like 3 or 4 years old. When I was in my mid-20s, he got tased and had a cardiac arrest and died. Same age I was. And like I said, I was in my mid-20s. And there's a big cover up behind it. Tasers are deadly. they're going to kill somebody with this, and they'll blame the person's condition, or they'll say they were on drugs, or all kinds of other stuff to cover it up. Right. I mean, Mitch McConnell thing, and I posted jokey images of me sitting next to Mitch McConnell, us going and get some run in with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes from Above the Rim. Like I made all my joke images about it because I don't believe for a second that this dude is still, even if he's alive, I don't think he's aware of what's happening. I think it's all a big game. And that's what it is. And I think the same thing's going to happen with Trump because they've already had multiple visits of him going to Camp David under weird he's getting his annual exam for the 4th time this year. I know these probably have medical emergencies in there, and it is what it is. They'll cover it up. They'll find a way to try to cover it up. White man can't die. Yeah, they're going to keep him as a zombie. He's going to be a zombie, and it's going to be weird. I feel like this Mitch McConnell thing, like you said, is kind of a beta test for what happens when it does happen with Trump in office, because and they'll cover it up. It's going to be the wildest propaganda campaign you've ever seen in your entire life, because it happened. Remember when he caught COVID and he was almost out of here, and then when they released him from the hospital, I watched this man climb up the stairs, and he sat up there, and it looked like he was about to give up the ghost when he got up to the stairs. He like he was trembling and shaking. He was not in great condition or whatnot, and we didn't see him for a little bit of time after that. I think that they're going to be beta testing what happens when he goes. I think I don't know. I hope so. It might be like rats fleeing a ship. But I think the thing I've read, and there's an article I've read where a lot of, it was kind of one of those in the Beltway kind of articles, so it's going to be a hard time to find it. But they're saying the reason why a lot of people in the GOP seem to go along with this crazy bullshit that we're enduring right now as a result of this administration is their kids are being threatened. It might have been Bill Cassidy. It might have been Cassidy, if I'm not mistaken. One of his kids is an intern in the White House. All these inside things that these people get and access that their families get, that gets threatened by, you need to fall in line, otherwise this could go away. Looks like your son is an intern at this company that's in the president's back pocket. That legislation, he's going to need you on that legislation. Otherwise, he might not be able to hold on to your kid. And so I don't think that power goes away. He'll be a lame duck president. I think so. They did that with Bush. Right, and that's what I'm saying. I think that they have enough leverage politically right now to force compliance with some of these people that are, Madison Cawthorn. He was a liability. I knew he wasn't going to be. He was the cutout for that. Donald Duck. Lame. I don't know if you understand. So a lame duck president is a president that has no power. Essentially, they're on their way out, and nobody listens to them. Right, scamming people. He's back to the original grift. Right, it was all a scam in the first place. We're gonna see the end of Jeanine Pirro here pretty soon. They'll find some other Yahoo to jam in there in her position. But I feel like we're cooked because what's happening is, right now the head of the DOJ was the president's lawyer. Name any other time when that's ever been even something remotely normal in this country. Like the president's personal lawyer is now the head of the DOJ. It's crazy. And the dude that voted for him, he's up there like the last Republican that did vote for him. Was that doctor? I think it was Cassidy again. He's up there damn near in tears and everything. because they went out and said, "Hey, man, your kids can disappear too, bro." So, um, you know, hey, people disappear all the time, bro. That's what happened. That's how they rolled up on him, and he's like, "Oh, shoot, I need to get out here and make. All you got to do is just vote for the right thing." All right, I'll get out there. That dude was almost in tears, bro. Um, the wildest shit ever. And it was a 180 from this dude's the president's personal lawyer. I don't trust him to. I mean, sometimes you just gotta vote for, and hope that he does right. Y'all voted for the Trump's personal fixer, bro, and put him in charge of the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is done, so, bro. It's done. As the fake gold standard of law enforcement in this country, it is done. Only one true believer, right? Okay, I knew. Okay, you got blamed none because the temper tantrum, right? And he looks like Donald Duck. He looks like what if Donald Duck was a human being but really, really ugly? Let me ask you this question: um, Was Todd Blanche ever? Does he even have? Okay, so he does have prosecute. He's a prosecutor, mostly in private practice, and then he went to work for Trump. So he had very kind of like typically there's an entire resume of working for the Southern District because he was in the Southern District of New York and all that other stuff. Um, huh, interesting. That was the top lance was the absolute DEI hire. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Well, but I also think, oh no, my kid just disappeared because I don't put that above them. We talked about the criminal element of what's going on there. I think he probably threatens them with other stuff all the time. And I know you had the dossier on Lindsey Graham. I don't know what Lindsey Graham was scared of. There was nothing that there was going to come out about Lindsey Graham that we didn't already figure out. Yeah, they do consider it. It's a big deal for them to lose access. Well, my kid's going to have to go out and get a job like everybody else's kid and earn their way in society as opposed to just being handed everything. Yeah, it is. The general incompetence is a thing. Yeah, disappearing to something else. I don't put it beyond them to say, yeah, man, your kid can disappear, bro. Like we could just you might not make it home one night. And I don't put it past this administration to do it, bro. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm thinking that he gets this weird compliance from all these people because he knows exactly what strings to pull. I think that's the one thing that this administration is good at is keeping intel on everybody. He manages by keeping. That's always been his management style. If you notice, in the few things that he actually managed reasonably successfully. When you read it, it said he manages by getting all of his subordinates to fight each other, so no one group can ally against him. And that's what he does right now. No, Lindsey Graham was. Oh yeah, and we knew a lot of the dirt Lindsey was up to. Lady G, come on, man. And so I think whatever reason Lindsey Graham was paranoid about what was going to come out about. I was like, bro, we no, man, just let it go, bro. You don't have to be up under this dude, bro. Let it just embrace who you are. The subject we did every third hour. Okay, that's what's up. I've already been attacked and assassinated. I know that they listen. I don't want to get into conspiracy brain. There's one history teacher that showed us the propaganda. He was, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Here's what I'm gonna say about it's weird how we never hear anything about these people that made attempts on this specific guy in office. It's weird how they just disappear. We don't hear anything about them. The cases just close silently and stuff like that. Yeah, Nancy, and it's not even like they treated it like it was a joke for them. Like, ha, you almost got killed by this dude with the hammer. Ha, funny, funny, funny. Um, that's the kind of politics we're up against right now. And I can imagine that if you're somebody that has something to lose and you're marginally aligned with the president, and your fortunes are kind of intertwined with this administration, um, they got leverage over you. And I haven't seen any one of these people actually have the courage to actually stand up. I mean, even Thomas Massey, I guess I'll get Thomas Massey, even though he's done some weird racist shit. Fuck him. Um, but he was one of the few. But I even look at like Ron Paul or Rand Paul, whatever Paul that little racist shithead is. You thought that he would have some stones to stand up against Fred. He doesn't. He's another sycophant. Because they found the thing that could placate him, or they found the leverage on him that could destroy him. The news is burying those. And putting Barry Weiss in charge of CBS is just going to bury more stuff. And they're trying to find more things to give her. CBS News is complete and utterly. It's basically Fox News, except it's not as extreme. It's a more moderate version of Fox News right now because it's owned by Paramount. The Ellisons have control over the programming there. Luigi case is interesting. If they could have disappeared him, they would. They 100% would. They're trying to make an example out of him because how Americans responded to him. They're like, it was a CEO of a health company. They didn't like that. The people of power in this country, the billionaires, did not like the fact that Americans are like, I mean, like that. Well, if you were here, the entire way that people responded to Luigi Mangione, it was almost cross party lines. Like, so who do you take out? CEO of a healthcare company. Hear me out, and that's how Americans responded to it, by and large. And so they're trying to roll this sham trial to make an example out of him. Yeah, they're making an example out of him because Americans weren't shocked and outraged. I remember how the news was trying to paint it to say this is very. They were almost trying to chastise people into being mad about the entire Luigi thing, and people who have actually lost loved ones to these health insurance companies are just like, how many? He innovated a system to purge more people from the reels of insurance. Don't necessarily feel bad about that. But the news, I remember how the news was in the days after. They were like wagging the finger out, like, you better not. It's very bad. It's very dark. No matter what you are, this is not okay. So, I mean, that was almost bipartisan. It was really a weird thing. I'm sad about CBS because 60 Minutes actually used to be, from a corporate media standpoint, it used to be at least one of the gold standards of independence, and they murdered it. They murdered it. Yeah, with Rob Morrill and all that stuff. They murdered CBS News and destroyed their independence. Break out of jail. Break out Luigi. Oh, they ain't gonna break him out. Luigi's another side is they talking about Luigi's gonna be a hero regardless of if he gets prosecuted or not. Luigi's gonna be good in the prison system unless the government gets a hold of him and tries to the Bureau of Prisons is actually under the DOJ, so they may flex their muscle to try to make him miserable while he's in there. But from an inmate standpoint, I think he's probably pretty good. But we already saw that this administration is not past malicious prosecution. We already knew that. Yeah. They're destined. They're hell bent to crucify him, considering the public embarrassments that the DLJ has been suffering with some of these sham trials. Like the dude that they said the medalist that they said had superhuman strength to rip off a chunk of um, whatever that paint was in the reflecting pool, and they maliciously charged him. That's a fat lawsuit. It's a fat lawsuit. Because he could prove malicious prosecution and probably get a nice chunk of change. He could live comfortably for the rest of his life. It's already been proven that the DOJ, when they find enemies, what they consider to be enemies of the state, enemies of the corporate class, they're going to disproportionately use the justice system to punish them. And we're not going to see any of these major corporations. I don't think we'll see any major filings from the Department of Justice when these corporations are found guilty of ripping off people or poisoning people on a large scale or anything along those lines. It's just not going to happen. So, oh shoot! All right, guys. Hey, sorry to cut it short. I have something I got to go take care of. So I do appreciate you. I didn't get. I literally got through one section of my outline tonight. I got through a single section of my outline. So um, I did want to. I think next week, and hold me to this. Next week, I want to do kind of a deep dive about IQ tests and the racist idiots that love them. And I say that as somebody. Last time I did an IQ test, like I was in anywhere between 145 and 150. It doesn't mean shit. Literally doesn't mean anything. But some of the dumbest people you know love IQ. Like they love IQ as some standard of intelligence measuring. And I don't even lead with that more times than not. Like, yeah, I've tested high on my IQ test. Doesn't really mean anything. It means that I'm better in some cognitive tasks, things like that. But for you who's quoting IQ tests like it's this all-encompassing thing online. Um, yeah, so I wanted to do an entire segment about IQ tests and the idiots that love them, and then talk about the modalities of oppression in the X-Men. But I don't have time tonight. um, and so let me catch up with you. Make sure I get everybody uh, get everybody's comments on screen. To get one person at help, top help responsible. Right. Spider-Man. Go watch Spider-Man. I will. I'm about to finish X-Men 97 this week, and then Spider-Man's next on the menu. We got safe saying low IQ. Yeah, they're too stupid to understand that IQ tests don't mean anything. Like they mean something, but not what they think they mean because they're not smart enough to understand what they actually mean. So they just use it as low IQ. Um, Again, like I said, I have a high IQ test. Like that was like high, I guess, high-ish. So it was 145, 150 high, I think it is, whatever. Um, Not necessarily mean anything. This means I'm better at some cognitive things than most people are. It's not a big deal. Um, but they use it as a standard to mean something. Like they actually think that Elon has this really super high IQ, right? Had somebody say, "You're not smarter than Ben Shapiro." I'm like, I might be. I don't really care. Doesn't put any money in my pocket, and I don't want to be a grifter. And so, yeah, me being smarter than Ben Shapiro, who cares? Let people falling for calling people dumb. The smart ones can go right. That's ad hominem, right? It's so good. That's what the one I'm getting to, Matt. Like, I'm trying to make it through X Men '97 because I wanted to do a whole piece of content around that. Spider Man Noir is going to be the other one. I'm trying to catch up on a lot of shows. I've been so busy. I like we wanted to go see the new Spider Man this weekend, and we just didn't have the time. Like, I barely have time to go to movies and stuff and sit down and watch shows. And so, but I need to do it for my channel because I am a nerd. Like, this is a Todd McFarlane Spider Man. Like, my nerd aesthetic is like that's what I do. But oftentimes, I end up getting caught up in the day to day function of surviving. Mr. Shapiro was fine. Yeah, and his parents were rich too. Like his parents were both rich. Like he's a nepo baby, and he's a failed screenwriter. That's what he's been trying to do. This entire thing was some roundabout way of becoming a screenwriter because nobody wanted to read his shitty screenplays, spec scripts. Nobody wanted to see any of this crap, and so he built this entire company so that he could publish, so he can make his own shitty movies. That's on the menu. Not even a big Spider-Man fan. Spider-Man's my goat, bro. Because I look at Spider-Man and it's like that guy gets it. It's a ping pong. Hey. We don't do Marvel slam. No, I'm just playing. The reason why Spider-Man is one of my goats is when I look at Spider-Man, I look at a guy, um, he still has to work a regular job. He has to do all this other stuff and still try to hold down a regular job and have an apartment and a regular life. Like he's the only superhero where I see like, yeah, man, his interpersonal life is in shambles, bro. And there's nothing you can do about it. The thing that frustrates me most about Spider-Man is he's in proximity to all these billionaires and he can't go to Tony Stark's like, hey man, Tony, come here, come here. So I'm saving New York. I've saved the world at least 5 times last year. Do you think you can give me a grant or something to pay my living expenses? You know, like give me a grant or something. um, just to take care of my living expenses. You could say you're hiring the brilliant mind of Peter Parker to invent things for you or whatever. Just give me a grant because I mean I literally saved New York. I saved the world 5 times last year. You think at least you could do that? Like I wish Spider-Man would actually use the resources that are available to him. He can go. He knows multiple billionaires, and I think 1 trillionaire in T'Challa. Like, go get an endowment from them to live your life so that you can be taken care of and all the other stuff. So Spider-Man's the most NYC. And so they said that he actually had a role in some of the production and writing of it. So that I'm interested to see what he does because I think Tom Holland's a smart guy. I don't know. I think oftentimes we overestimate the influence of entertainment and music on other people while saying that we are above the fray. And oftentimes we're all subject to the manipulation in some way, shape, or form. We've all been propagandized. Um, uh, and so, but it's always easier to say, well, this propaganda is going to affect this group of people over here. Yeah, but here's the thing: if we never allow ourselves to be entertained, I don't want to live a life like that where I don't have where I don't get to escape into my diversions. I don't. That's to me. That's the absolute emptiest part of my. That would be the emptiest part of my life. It's the reason why I do the live streams. Right? I enjoy this. It's something that is fun for me. It allows me an outlet and everything. If I had to live where this had to be serve some higher function, um, then being a place where I can have these kind of conversations and not provide a layer of entertainment, I don't know if I will want to continue on. Comic books have always been my escape. When I was suicidal as a kid, comic books were my escape. Marvel and DC, like that's where it went. And so I get it, but you could say the same about pretty much anything. Um, there's no piece of media that is broadcast that you see on a wide screen or on television or anything that doesn't have some kind of corporate machine behind it. And so um, oftentimes we kind of pick and choose and say, well, this is an independent movie. Well, even independent movies have some kind of corporate backing behind it in order to get into all the screens around the world. There has to be some corporate machine that's pushing the action. So, like I said, I don't want to live in a world where um, I have to psychoanalyze all my, even the forms of things that even to psychoanalyze all the things that entertain me too. Like, like I said, I know DC is owned by um, DC is owned by Warner Brothers and all that other stuff, and they have their agendas. I know Marvel is owned by Disney, and Disney has its own agendas. Um, I can't carry that weight every single time I sit down and want to have a world to escape into. No, that's all I. They did the Spider-Man thing. So about that ping pong game, it's got to stay aware of it. Project Hail Mary. Okay, you guys are loading me up with stuff. I did want to see Project Hail Mary. I got to go back and see. So the one that I wanted to actually do a full critique on, and I've held off on it, was One Battle After Another, just because I've had like seeing the clips of the movie really put a bad taste in my mouth, and I need to see if it actually is as gross as I feel like it could be. I think it was watching like to me, just my perspective without only seeing bits and pieces of it and reading interviews with Paul Thomas Anderson and other people that were in the film. uh, I feel like it's Paul Thomas Anderson working through his fetish for black women, and so I had to actually sit down and watch that movie. So there's a couple of ones that are on my agenda. I do want to see Project Hail Mary just because it looked interesting, but there's other ones that I want to watch for other reasons. Torture resistance. Imagining the flame. Okay, I've heard about that, guys. I gotta run. I gotta next week we may be able to do a raid, but I gotta run. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Shoot, we're almost at 2 hours. Yikes. But we kept it rolling like that. When I thought about it, the more I loved it. Okay, so I gotta put that on my pull list. Basically, it's what I can convince my wife to sit and watch with me. So anyway, I do appreciate y'all. I will talk to y'all later. Raid R star. Just copy, paste that. Shoot. I'm gonna see what I can do. I don't know if I can copy it. The thing is, I'm on StreamYard, and so the way, and I wish I could show you how my screen looks without breaking my computer. So yeah, I can't copy and paste anything. I can't click on any of these links. I've submitted tickets to them to say, can we fix this so that I can actually click on links and things along those lines and stuff and do raids. And I haven't heard back from them. And I've been paying for StreamYard for a number of years. You'd think that they would. I can on Twitch, I think, but I have to see. And I don't want to. I get where I'm at. Let me see if I get DMs on Twitch. We could send the raid over, but then I got to bounce. Like I got other stuff that I'm kind of spending. I got stuff that's kind of pending that I need to get on here. Yeah, send it to me. See what I can do. The other thing is I need to set my second computer. I have another monitor that I need to bring over here. So I may, and the other side is typically, I'm gonna be honest with you, Maddie, I get a lot of bullshit from like YouTube. Like when I share this on YouTube, typically it's somebody coming in, they say something nasty or snarky, and then they disappear. They don't even stick around and watch the show. I may make this a TikTok exclusive, and then that way I'll be streaming directly on TikTok. I mean, not TikTok, on Twitch. I may make it a Twitch exclusive, and then we could do the raids and everything else. But yeah, send it over in the DM, and I'll see what I can do. Or do we just want to wait till next week? Okay, you just DM'd it. I got you. Let me see what. Yeah. Got it. All right. So I'll jump in there and paste it, and then I got to dip out of here. I got some other stuff I want to get done, or some other stuff I need to get done. Where's my light? Where we at? On to my channel. Ugh. Cool, cool. So I'll go ahead and post it. Oh, that's really off-putting. Oh my goodness. It worked. All right. So I have to get out of here. I do appreciate you guys. I'm getting the double hearing thing. Like I'm hearing both of my like I'm getting the lag and everything. So but I'll probably jump on my phone in a little bit. I got something I gotta go take care of. I do appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you later.